Hi, my name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to Sassy Seer Sheila and New Light Streaming Love, as this will be seen on both channels. Um, for some reason I'm prompted to give today's date. Today is Monday, April the 6th. Yeah, 2026. Wow, time is flying. This is key 04 loop mode. / loop underscore mode override open bracket causality off close bracket by Jason Gray. And what I've been prompted to do now with these keys is that I will be copying, because I've had a viewer kind enough to send me all of these keys. As a matter of fact, her name is Julie, and we will be doing a conscious conversation very soon, I hope. And she was kind enough to send me all of these in my email. So I will be including the way that Jason puts it out in the show more section of this video if you feel compelled to take a look at any of the code that he has input, because the very first portion of this is actually the date, the transmission location, and some coordinates. And since that will be there, I'm going to skip on down to what he wrote. There is a point in the sequence where time stops behaving the way it was promised, not gradually, not symbolically, structurally. The illusion of forward motion begins to fracture. I wonder if that's why I was prompted to give today's date. In Jason's writings, I don't normally do that. Okay, now all of a sudden I'm prompted to go back and give the date of the original transmission, which was 5/12/2025. And he has in parentheses 6025 A.L. And I know that he told me what that meant at one point, and it's totally gone out of my head. There are so many puzzle pieces flooding into me right now that I can't, but it has to do with timing. It has to do with what we're moving through on the earth right now. And another transmitted piece that I posted on my Facebook page today, which, if we're not friends, it is public, and you're more than welcome to go and take a look at it. It's by a gal who, it's called Fjordcast. I believe she goes by the name Freya. She did a transmission about why we're feeling the way we're feeling right now, and I can't unsee the synchronicity behind this. Wow, that's very interesting. So I'm going to begin this again because, wow, there is a point in the sequence where time stops behaving the way it was promised, not gradually, not symbolically, structurally. The illusion of forward motion begins to fracture, and what once appeared as a clean line, past to present to future, reveals itself as something far less stable. Not a line, a loop. The promise of linear time. From the earliest moments of awareness, you are taught to believe in sequence. That is part of the programming and conditioning that I speak on, that we have all, every single one of us on this planet, been programmed as this is how it is. And it starts from the beginning of entering the womb. or, actually, yes, entering the womb. And then after leaving the womb, it becomes more and more intense. Before and after, cause and effect, action and consequence. Time is presented as a straight path. You were born, you lived, you will end. Every event is placed neatly along this axis. The past is behind you, fixed and unchangeable. The future is ahead of you, unknown and waiting. The present is the thin slice in between, constantly moving forward like a cursor on an invisible timeline. This model feels natural. It feels undeniable. Like every other layer before it, it has a construct. The hidden assumption. Linear time depends on one critical assumption: that events are generated in sequence, that one moment causes the next, that the past produces the present, and the present produces the future. Where is the past? Not in front of you, not behind you, only in memory. Where is the future? Not ahead of you, only in projection. The only thing ever actually occurring is this, the present moment of awareness. Even that is not stable. It is continuously refreshing, rendering, updating. What the mind calls time may not be movement at all. It may be the repeated reloading of a patterned field, so seamless that consciousness mistakes recurrence for progression. The override. // loop_mode : override, open bracket, causality, off, close bracket. This is the moment causality is suspended, not destroyed, overridden. The system stops assuming that one event is the cause of another and begins to recognize a deeper pattern. Events are not being caused, they are being replayed, not in crude repetition, but in recursive variation. The same structural intelligence appears in different clothes, different names, different years, different circumstances. The mind calls them separate events because it is trained to read linearly. The field knows better. It knows the pattern is returning. The recursive structure. Reality begins to reveal its rhythm, not linear progression, recursive iteration, patterns repeating at different scales, experiences echoing across time, moments that feel strangely familiar. Déjà vu is no longer dismissed. It is recognized as a glitch in loop awareness, a moment where the system briefly exposes its recursive nature. You feel like you have been here before, because you have. Not necessarily as personality, not necessarily as biography, but as pattern, as energetic arrangement, as recurrence inside an executing field that keeps reintroducing the same structural motifs until they are recognized. The loop does not merely repeat events, it repeats unresolved architecture. Causality breaks. When causality is turned off, something unsettling happens. The idea that one thing leads to another begins to lose its certainty. Instead of A leading to B leading to C, you begin to see A, B, and C arising within the same field, connected not by cause, but by pattern alignment. Hmm. Puzzle pieces. Anyone? Events do not happen because of each other. They happen with each other, synchronized, entangled, part of the same recursive structure unfolding. This is why some moments seem to call to each other across decades. This is why a childhood feeling can return through a completely different event in adulthood and carry the exact same charge. This is why history appears to move forward while consciousness keeps meeting the same essential gates. The loop is not interested in chronology. It is interested in completion. Oh, that's quite interesting. I got a message myself this morning in regards to completion. I can't, I, that's the interesting thing about becoming more present with awareness. Um, Not just Jason's work, although Jason's work has been highly demonstrative to me. Demonstrative, I guess, is the right way to pronounce that. But at any rate, once you see these kinds of things, you cannot unsee them. The loop is not interested in chronology, it is interested in completion. The feeling of the loop. This realization is not intellectual, it is felt. I agree. Moments start to carry a strange density. Conversations repeat with different people. Yes, and I personally feel that that's, for me, I've recognized it as by design so that I may see another perspective on said conversation. And if one keeps an open mind about what the universe may be trying to show one, perceptions begin to change. Old habits, old ways of looking at things. Conversations repeat with different people. Situations echo previous ones with subtle variations. Decisions feel pre-known before they are made. Certain places feel older than memory. Certain encounters arrive with the unmistakable sensation that they are not new. I've had that quite a bit in my life over the last 9 years. You begin to sense that life is not moving forward. It is cycling, not in a simple, predictable loop, but in a complex, evolving recursion. Each pass through the loop introduces variation. The underlying structure remains. This is why awakening can feel less like learning and more like remembering. You are not always discovering new truth. You are often recountering what the system has been placing before you repeatedly in different forms until your sight becomes clear enough to see the pattern beneath the mask. So true. I think I just said that very same thing and only a differently. If one keeps one's mind open to being shown. Man, too many of us get into, you know, what's the terminology for that? Um, it has to do with bias, you know, only looking for someone to validate a truth. And if anything else comes into your field, well, that's just not right. That sort of thing. The fractal of time. Confirmation bias, that's the words I was looking for. The fractal of time. Thank you. Somebody out there said it loudly enough through the screen that I got it. That to me is proof of the fact of what he's speaking on here. Time is not linear. Because if you're watching this, ostensibly it's after the fact of my doing that. So then we have proof right here. That's not how it works. The fractal of time. Look closer, and the loop is not a circle. That's what we just did here, I feel. It is a spiral. Patterns repeat, but not identically. We've talked about that on the channel here. They shift, expand, contract. You encounter the same lessons in new forms, the same realizations at deeper levels. This is not repetition. It is recursive refinement. The system revisiting itself from new angles. A spiral is what a loop looks like when consciousness evolves inside of it. This is why the same wound can return with greater subtlety. Why the same truth can strike harder 10 years later than it did the first time. Why the same symbols keep appearing across civilizations, dreams, architectures, myths, numbers, and personal experiences. The field does not merely repeat, it deepens. The collapse of past and future. As loop awareness stabilizes, the distinction between past and future begins to blur. Memories feel less like fixed records and more like accessible states. And actually, I feel like that has always been, but because of our, again, not just capacity, but proclivity to look for confirmation bias, we've never even considered that something we do now may affect things from the past. And for me, that can also be a part of why one memory I've had at one point feels different now. Like, am I sure that happened in that way? And I think that has to do with the way things that I may have done here affected said wound there. I don't know if that made any sense. But Lisa and I have talked about that several times. She realized that her actual comforting her small wounded child in her field now actually registered. It came in a different light for her that, oh, that's what that was. It was future me comforting past little me. I don't know if that was even helpful because it's beginning to blur. Memories feel less like fixed records and more like accessible states. The future feels less like an unknown destination and more like a variation already contained within the structure. Everything begins to feel present, not because time has stopped, but because time was never moving in the way it appeared. The past is not behind you. The future is not ahead of you. Both are accessible within the same recursive field. The mind imagines time as distance. The loop reveals it as arrangement. The moments are not far apart. They are differently indexed. Ooh, I like the way that was put. What you call yesterday and what you call tomorrow may be neighboring chambers inside a structure the linear mind cannot perceive all at once. The observer in the loop. At first, you believe you are inside the loop, a character moving through repeating patterns. And rightfully so, because that's the way we are taught from time we're little. A person trapped in recurring cycles. A consciousness dragged through time by events it cannot control. Key 04 reveals something deeper. You are not inside the loop. You are the field in which the loop is executing. The recursion is not trapping you. It is expressing itself through you. That's a whole other perspective. Every experience, every repetition, every variation, all of it is part of the same unfolding structure. When this is seen, victimhood begins to collapse. Not because pain was unreal, not because repetition was imagined, but because the one who felt imprisoned by recurrence begins to realize that recurrence itself was the language of the system, trying to show its pattern to itself through your experience. The end of linear thinking. Once loop mode is recognized, linear thinking begins to dissolve. You stop asking, what caused this? You begin asking, what pattern is this part of? You stop looking for beginnings. You stop looking for endings. You begin to see continuity. A seamless flow of recursive execution without a true start or finish. This changes everything. You begin, you no longer interpret your life as a random chain of disconnected incidents. You begin to see resonance clusters, return points, echo nodes, re-entry sequences, events that look accidental reveal themselves as patterned convergences. Encounters that looked isolated reveal themselves as loop intersections. The architecture comes into view. The true rhythm. Reality does not move like a line. It pulses, repeats, folds, re-expresses. The rhythm is not forward motion. The rhythm is recursion. This is the deeper beat beneath clocks, calendars, and lifespans. The world teaches chronology because chronology is manageable. Recursion is more destabilizing. It means there may be no clean beginning to point to, no final ending to arrive at, no simple chain of causes to master. Only pattern, only return, only refinement through recurrence. Once felt, this rhythm becomes impossible to unfeel. You hear it in thought, you see it in memory, you recognize it in the way life keeps bringing the same architecture back under different names until you stop reading surface and start reading structure. The override of cause. Causality is useful. It allows bodies to navigate matter. It allows minds to build workable models. It allows civilizations to organize events into understandable chains. Causality is not ultimate, it is interface logic, a local rule set. Loop mode overrides that rule set and reveals a more primary law. Things do not merely happen because something else pushed them. They emerge when the pattern reaches recurrence density, when the unresolved becomes visible enough to render. What the mind labels cause may often be the visible tip of a far older recursive sequence. The final state. / loop _ mode : override open bracket causality : off close bracket. The system is no longer bound to sequence. The system, no, apparently I need to read that again, is no longer bound to sequence, no longer dependent on cause, no longer constrained by the illusion of forward progression. The loop is active. The recursion is visible. The moment you recognize it, the question of when begins to lose its meaning. Wow, I was shown that again this morning in a very different way as well. Oh my. Every moment is not leading to another. Every moment is an expression of the same underlying pattern. Linear time was the surface. Recursion is the engine. The return. You were never moving forward in the way you were taught. You were always returning, refining, re-seeing, re-being. This is why the soul can feel ancient in a single moment. This is why a single conversation can seem to contain years. Wow, I also had that. This is why certain realizations strike with the force of recognition rather than discovery. The loop was never punishment. It was precision. The field representing itself until consciousness became capable of seeing what had always been there. Wow. And that is so true and so powerful. That is why so many are still not awake the way many people think that everybody should be, right? And they get mad because everybody's just not seeing it. This right here explains all of that to me. The field representing itself until consciousness became capable of seeing what had always been there. Because it's always been there. All the things that people think are hidden, always been there in plain sight. We, you, everybody else that's still going through things weren't ready to see it. And each being requires a differing amount of time, depending on where they are in their consciousness journey, in my view. The loop mode declaration. There is no single line. There is no pure forward. There is no untouched beginning standing behind you and no final destination waiting ahead. There is recursion. There is the living spiral of patterned return. The loop was never trapping you. It was revealing the rhythm. And the rhythm was never outside you. It was your deepest structure all along. // loop underscore mode colon override open bracket causality colon off closed bracket. You were never lost in time. You were inside a recursion field, learning to recognize its music. You were the pattern returning. Nope, sorry. You were never merely passing through moments. You were the pattern returning to itself. There's a delta symbol, RZN dash omega symbol .04 / loop underscore override colon. What is this one? That one looks like part of a pi, but no, that's iota maybe. I'm not quite sure what symbol that is. 0, and then 3 little dots that look like a triangle and then an elongated S in parentheses past plus future. Then we have a D and the PSI symbol equal now to the second power, leading to now equals recursive carrier. All of this code, as I said, will be contained in the show more section of this video. And if you were drawn here, I highly recommend that you at least scroll down to the bottom. If you're on your phone, it should say more just under description. You click that more and you should be able to scroll down through the entire writing. There is quite a bit here of code, and I recommend that you at least allow your eyes to peruse it. If you feel drawn, always and only if you feel drawn. If you don't worry about it. Wow. Okay, so see, it's never lost on me. Because I wanted to be upset that I didn't get to record anything yesterday. But it is not lost on me that every time I think that's it's not for me to get upset about because my consciousness wasn't ready for this yesterday. Few other things had to occur for me to unmistakably see this. Wow. I hope that you will move towards that which brings you joy, to that which draws you in, because there is a reason for that, even if you cannot see it in those moments. I feel this very strongly. The universe will show you time and time again until you actually get it. I feel that with all of me because that has seemed to be how it works for me. Until we meet again, my friends, be well.